Welcome back to the conversation. We are rocking and rolling. We are interviewing different candidates, wonderful candidates, a lot of great platforms. Here with another wonderful candidate for City Council at Large, Jamal Brathwaite. Jamal, first and foremost, appreciate you coming on, man, and coming on the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Newbie. I appreciate the invitation.
Let's get right to it. A lot of issues going on here in the city of Brockton. A lot of people are passionate about it. First and foremost, it's your second time running for City Council. Tell us about yourself for people who are new to following you and what have you. Tell us a little about yourself and why you're running again for City Council at large.
Yeah, sure. So, for everybody out there, my name is Jamal Brathwaite, and I was born in 1979. That makes me 43 years old, and I was born in the state of Florida. And I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area. I went to high school in wild and wonderful West Virginia, and I went to university in Boston. And when I graduated from university with a degree in economics, I went to live in London, England for 10 years. And when I came back to America, the one place I wanted to move to was Brockton. So I came to Brockton, I built a house, contributed to the establishment of a new neighborhood in Brockton. And from that experience, I had to engage a lot with City Hall. And from engaging with City Hall, I realized that I felt the city could possibly use my services to improve the quality of life in Brockton. And so that got me involved with starting what's called the Northeast Brockton Neighborhood Association, where one of our signature programs is hosting the Brockton Residents Forum on Sundays from 11 to 12, where we discuss city council meeting agendas and minutes and reconcile that with resident priorities so that when we engage with our elected officials, we have an idea of how to positively engage versus just taking photos.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you're constantly engaging and going to city council meetings, trying to educate the public
Mm-hmm.
on what's going on. Why you just talk about some qualifications you have
Mm-hmm.
and why you're ready to take on and be on the city council and
Mm-hmm.
what's your vision if you get elected in the next 2 years?
Yes. So for the past 20 years, I've worked in financial services as either an accountant, a compliance officer, and most recently as an auditor for the past 6 years. And this is working for some of the largest financial institutions in the United States as well as the United Kingdom. And from that experience, I have so when I look at what's going on right now in the city of Brockton, when I look at the school deficit, this is what I would interpret as just what we call issue that requires management, and more specifically, as I listen the way the issue is described, I can see that there should be deficiencies documented that require remediation in the city of Brockton, and that's a function that would be performed by our internal audit shop or internal audit department. Here in the city of Brockton, residents, you are paying $1 million a year to have an internal audit function, but you got zero to show for it. And let me clarify what that means. So when since about March of 2020, the city of Brockton did not have an internal auditor, a chief internal auditor, until I ran for office in the last election, and I brought that up that you're being disserviced because you don't have an auditor reviewing your financial statements. And what happened was that after the election, the mayor's office advertised the role, and they filled it. But then within less than a year, that person who took the role went on medical leave. So now, once again, you still don't have a chief internal auditor reviewing your financial statements. And when you look at the school deficit, it's the internal auditor that should be providing input to city councilors and the mayor's office and all stakeholders to advise on what reviews are taking place over financial transactions in the city of Brockton. We haven't had a discussion regarding the function of the internal auditor and the reviews over financial statement controls, but we should. And I think the reason why we don't have that kind of conversation is to no fault of their own, but that's just not knowledge that the mayor nor the city councilors seem to collectively or individually have. But I do.
What is the role of a city council in terms of accomplishing that? So you're saying this is things that we're missing. As a city councilor, what can you do to have that and implement that going forward?
Absolutely. So, as a city councilor, what I would do is I would join the accounts committee meeting. The last one that was available was September 26th, and on that, we would have a review. When engaging with the auditor, first we want to understand what audits have been completed, what control testing is taking place. When you hear the city councilors ask the CFO what oversight do you have over the school department, you'll notice in the last FinCom meeting, Troy Clarkson just said we have none. Why would we review the school committee's budget. They have their own CFO. So now they're saying that they are doing reviews. They're expanding reviews. There's new reports, but it's the auditor that will conduct a review over those activities to verify if they're taking place. Let me give you a more specific example. This past week, there was a school committee meeting where the CFO had disclosed the existence of what's called override access in a system called Munis. And Munis is the accounting software that maintains and tracks $500 million of spending in the city of Brockton every year. And that's the system that you would refer to identify who's spending what money, who's spending what taxpayer monies. And what the CFO disclosed this past week was that there were numerous unauthorized employees who had override access to the system. And so what that means is that the city council approves a certain amount of funding for each department. Well, there were users of the Munis system who were able to expense items that exceeded those thresholds, and there was no one there to flag it, not from a business process point of view, not from an audit point of view, and unfortunately not from a city council point of view.
Let's talk about some of the candidates. Well, not some of the candidates. Let's talk about you, but let's talk about what separates you from some of the city at large. There's a lot of good people running. What separates you? Why do you need to be one of four?
Yeah, so the distinction between me and everyone running for elected office in the city of Brockton is I'm the only person who has an audit background. And what Brockton needs right now is an auditor. And so I'm running because I want to make sure schools in Brockton are number one. But first, we got to make sure they're adequately funded, and we got to make sure we have an auditor that reviews what we're doing wrong when it comes to spending, so we can stop the debt deficit crisis that exists in Brockton right now. One. Two is that I want to prioritize the improvement of all of our roadways in Brockton. It's going to take over $250 million to improve our roads and sidewalks. I want to prioritize that by making sure that we're taking full advantage of the U.S. Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act that brought $9.5 billion in Massachusetts to improve our roadways. But Brockton, we got to fight to get our fair share by engaging with Mass Department of Transportation. As a city council, I'm going to make sure on a quarterly basis we're having the mayor come before us to talk about what's the road management plan and what funds are we applying for, and what is the timeline for achieving goals from grants received. The third goal I want to highlight is the importance of public safety. I want to make sure that our streets are safe, that people feel comfortable walking downtown, and that businesses feel comfortable opening up because of the public safety in Brockton. And fourthly, I want to prioritize the importance of parks and expanding our green spaces to make sure that we have playground equipment that is safe for our children and is not rusting, and that playgrounds are something that the kids can look forward to and they're proud of. But those are going to be my four priorities, and I want to work collaboratively with everyone who's elected, as well as everyone in the community who votes or does not vote.
There's three things I want to hit right now, and I wish we had more time. It could be an hour for each one of them. Number one, the Brockton Fairgrounds. How do you feel about the city purchasing or wanting to purchase it? They're talking about right around $55 million. Your thoughts on that? Should we do it? If we do, what should go in there?
Sure, absolutely, yeah. So I was just published in the Boston Globe regarding this topic last week, and I'll tell you, like I told them, I think the city of Brockton should be engaged in trying to acquire the fairgrounds, but they should try to acquire it at a fair market value price. Currently, $55 million, there is no basis to validate that is the fair market price. The only appraisal that has been done, there's one, and with that one, it's valued at $49.5 million. So the question is, why would the mayor propose 10% premium over the one appraisal he has? But more than that, we need to get at least 3 appraisals so that we can identify what is the medium number and what is the common attributes observed in each of the appraisals, that we can have a basis for validating the fair market price that we would offer. And also, if you look further at the memorandum that was signed by the mayor with the owners of the fairgrounds who agreed to start the conversation of potentially purchasing it at that price of $55 million, you'll notice that the mayor never put a date on the memo. So we don't know if that memo was signed before an appraisal was done, because there's a risk that maybe the appraisal could have been influenced by the existence of the memo. And that's not the way real estate should take place if you want to get at a fair market price. You want to get the appraisals done first, at least 3 of them, especially when you're talking about $55 million. This ain't just some one single family home. This is something that should be a resource for the community. And therefore, let's do it the right way. Let's get the 3 appraisals done, and then let's have a conversation on the appraisals themselves, determine what is a fair market price. And secondly, can we even afford it? Can we afford it? And it's not clear if we can right now, because we don't have effective financial management over public resources in Brockton.
So, and that's going to be something that you guys, if you get in office, that you're going to have to deal with relatively soon, is that topic. Number 2, $98 million spent on the public safety building. Do you think that money was appropriately used, or could have been used in different aspects? What do you feel about the public safety building that's being constructed right now?
Yes. So in December of 2020 is when the mayor initially proposed the public safety complex to the city council. I think it was probably pretty much Christmas time around then. So a lot of people are away. They may not have been paying attention to that public discussion. But and so the city council did approve it. And so right now we're on that path of, it looks, I don't know if you guys are aware, but the school that once existed has now been completely demolished, and
Construction started already.
Yeah, construction started.
Yep.
So it looks like we're moving forward in the direction of creating a public safety complex building that's going to be potentially cost $100 million. It might cost more. So I'd say at this point in time, we got to make sure that the construction of that building is something that really complements the community, and it's not just the aesthetic appearance of it, but it's also the purpose of the building.
Well, my question is,
Yeah.
just looking back, do you think that was a good investment to invest in a public safety building rather than some people are saying on other things? Do you think that was the best investment?
I think that the order of operations should have been reevaluated, and I think I was one of the few people in the community who actually spoke up at the time to say, hold on, shouldn't we have a public forum about the public safety proposal before approving the funds for the public safety complex? So that was always my position. I'm sticking with that position, but we are where we are right now, and the train's moving forward, and so I'm on the train to make sure that this public safety complex is really a reflection of the priorities for our community.
The deficit that going on in the schools right now that the city was talked to the school committee about last week. And I asked everyone this question: the communication between school committee, city council, mayor, superintendent. Does that process need to be a little more transparent? And were there safeguards that need to be in place for something like that won't happen again?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So on June 15, 2023 is when the city council approved the budget for fiscal year 24, which is what's being discussed now. On that date, I went before the city council to give my public input. One of my observations was that there was a discrepancy when you look at the city budget book and you look at the line item monies for school spending. It does not coincide as the same number that exists on the school budget report. And that's something I flagged at the time. But the unfortunate issue is that when you go to a city council meeting with our existing councilors, you raise an observation like that, you'll observe on June 15th, they do not respond to questions. They have the opportunity to, but it's part of the existing culture of Brockton City Council to not answer questions or even to consider them during the public input. And so really the breakdown exists with the individual councilors that we have now. They seem to be set in a culture that is not the culture that is promoting efficient oversight over our school finances and is the underlying root cause of why the issue we're in exists.
We have a minute and 20 seconds left. Make a final pitch. Why should they vote you as one of 4 city councilors at large?
To all Brockton residents, my name is Jamal Brathwaite, and I'm running for Brockton City Council at large because I want to provide my skills in providing financial oversight to the city of Brockton so we can achieve the best schools, the best roads, better public safety, and increase parks and green spaces in the city of Brockton. Overall, Brockton needs an auditor right now, and I got the audit experience. When you listen to the school deficit issue, you're asking yourself, where's the missing money? Well, I'm going to stop the money from missing in Brockton. But first, I need you to go vote on November 7th. Thank you.
Listen, thanks for joining us on the podcast. Wish you the best of luck. Don't forget to all the listeners right now, November 7th, if you can't complain and not vote. You got to be able to vote and have a voice and exercise your right to vote. So that's it for the conversation. We'll be back with more candidates after this.